What's up guys, it's Cal, and now the next expansion, Battle for Azeroth, is closing in, only a day before it hits live servers, so I want to get this last minute video and to tell you about professions. All the profession changes coming in Battle for Azeroth. Well, not just changes, but all the profession perks that will be coming in this expansion, since every profession has a little something that can benefit you in a major capacity or even a minor sense. And plus this might make you want to switch professions if you see one as more beneficial than the other. So we already know one change to professions, since it's already on live servers, and that's the expansion breakup of every profession. Each expansion now has a separate skill level for you to level up. So Classic goes up to 300, Outland, Northrend, and Cataclysm, and Pandaria go up to 75, Draenor and Legion go up to 100, and then Kul Tiras and Zandalar go up to 150. This is melee. If you pick a new profession, you don't have to make a crap ton of items from previous expansions to be able to make current expansion items. You can just jump right into making current expansion stuff with its new skill bar. Now before I talk about each profession individually, I like to talk about this nifty thing here, the Scrapper. Both Horde and Alliance have one. Now what is the Scrapper? Well, it's needed for a lot of professions, and it's pretty much an Obliterum Forge 2.0, except unlike the Obliterum Forge, the Scrapper is not limited to crafted gear, but instead you can put in any Battle for Azeroth armor piece or weapon. And it also has 9 slots. You can scrap one item after another, and it will give you regions for different professions. Like for example, if you decide to scrap cloth armor or cloaks, it'll give you cloth and threads for tailors, since tailors can make those, or if you scrap trinkets, it'll give you inscription inks, since inscriptionists can make trinkets. Also, trinkets can give you herbs when scrapped. Or if you scrap plate armor and pretty much all weapons besides bows and crossbows, then it'll give you ores and flux for blacksmiths. Now on top of it giving you profession materials, it also has a chance to give you an item called Expulsum, which is this expansion's version of Bloods of Sargeras. And through testing on the beta, it seems like you'd roughly get one of these for every 6 items you scrap. Now Expulsum is used in crafting level 120 armor and weapons along with trinkets, like Dark Moonfair cards for example. You can also craft follower equipment with it, and the new 32 slot bag by Tailors, the Embroidered Deep Sea bag, which is the largest crafted bag, 2 slots bigger than the Hexweave bag. Also with Expulsum, alchemists can make the new raid cauldron for potions. So those are some things you can use Expulsum for, and on top of all that, there are also achievements of course for scrapping 100 items, 250 items, and 500 items. So that's the Scrapper. Now let's take a look at the secondary professions. So for cooking, there's no really new major things going on with it, just of course the new cooking recipes and new cooking meats and fish like meaty haunch, stringy loin, slimy mackerel, and sand shifter, just to name some. And then you can make some light meals such as grilled catfish, seasoned loins, and Heartsbane hexwurst. These just heal you and have no combat benefits. Now there are also desserts, which will give you 41 to a specific secondary stat. These aren't as good as larger meals, which I'll get to in a second, but they're easier to craft. So there's items like cold tiramisu, which gives you 41 crit for an hour, or Loa Loaf, which gives you 41 mastery, and then many others. Large meals give you 55 of a secondary stat, like Swamp, Fish and Chips with haste, and Spice Snapper with versatility. And then there are feasts, which feed up to 35 people in a raid and will give you 75 of your best secondary stat. Then on top of that, there are Warfront contributions, where there are NPCs that will take supplies in exchange for reputation. So for example, there might be an NPC that asks for 60 meaty haunches. In exchange you'll get 500 rep with the Honorbound or 7th Legion, and you'll also get 750 Azerites, which is nice. These are daily quests, and they actually go for every single profession that I'm going to be talking about. So for fishing, there's really just one small change to fishing, but before I get to that, I want to talk about something that's staying, and that is our artifact fishing pole. Yep, we get to be able to use that while on Kul Tiras or Zandalar. Now, although the artifact fishing pole gives a lot of bonuses to fishing on the Broken Isles, it also allows you to walk on water, reduce stealth detection by 5 yards while fishing, and allows you to breathe and move faster while underwater. And these things will work on Zandalar or Kul Tiras. Now, the new addition is that while fishing, you may receive some pop-up that says you've received this fish, and that's because you have about a 1 in 20 chance to receive an extra fish while fishing. So it's something small, but it's something new. Now there are different types of Kul Tiras and Zandalar fish of course, but then there's one called the Midnight Salmon, which is a green quality fish, and you can use it and it will teleport you to the nearest fishing node on Kul Tiras or Zandalar. And then for mounts, there's only one new fishing mount as of yet for Battle for Azeroth, and that is the Great Sea Ray. It's a recolor of the Dark Water Skate and has about a 0.5% chance to be fished up from any coastal waters around either region. Now there's of course new fishing achievements that you can check out, but 2 that stood out to me were Baiting the Enemy and Baiting the Enemy, a Horde and Alliance version. The Horde version wants you to catch a fish, Rasperalis, in Proudmoore Keep, and the Alliance version wants you to catch the fish, Utaka, in Dazara Lore. So it just brings back memories of catching Old Crafty, Old Ironjaw, and Orgrimmar in Ironforge. Then for archaeology. So there are 2 new archaeology solves, the Drust and Zandalari, but all you probably care about are the new toys and battle pets that you can get. Also a couple trinkets. There's a Drust toy from archaeology called the Dance of the Dead, which summons a ghostly dancing witch. Then there's a pile of bones, which summons a restored revenant pet, and then a tormented mind trinket that has a neat effect of slowing enemies' attack speed for 5 seconds. Now all these are Drust archaeology items, so for Zandalari, there's a Croak Croc toy, which summons a plague of frogs, an intact Direhorn egg, which will of course summon a Direhorn hatchling, and then a Sanguinating Totem, which has the interesting effect of siphoning the target's health. So that's really all there is to archaeology. No real new changes, just new things of course, considering it's a new expansion. Now for the main professions. Alchemy. So alchemists have a few perks to them. There are 2 new alchemist stones that only they can make and equip. They give versatility and have a chance to increase your main stat by an amount, and increases the effect of healing and mana potions by 40%. They both do the same thing, just one is stronger than the other. Then alchemists can make a follower equipment called the Potion of Herb Tracking. Put this on your follower and you'll have a chance to have herbs rewarded to you after successful missions. Now this is a bind on pickup, meaning that only alchemists will be able to use it when they craft it. But fear not, all professions have an item like that helps with their profession. And then just like previous expansions, alchemists have an increased duration on effects of elixirs and flasks that they know how to make. And then the healing potions that they make are coastal healing potions, which heal for about 33k health, and then coastal mana potions, which grant about 11k mana. Then of course the various potions, which give you 900 of your main stat for 25 seconds. And then of course flasks, which give you 238 of your main stat, but then the stamina flask gives you 357 stamina. Then as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, the Mystical Cauldron is the new raid-wide cauldron, which gives up to 30 people flasks for their main stat. You do need an alchemy skill of 150, with 4 of each flask and 5 expulsums. Oh, and also a Hydra Core, which is dropped from the last boss of any mythic dungeon. Now alchemists of course have their various transmute abilities, and these will allow you to transmute different materials for different professions into, well, other materials. Like you can transmute tailoring cloths into leatherworking skins, or herbs into cloths, or even ore into gems. And with various herbs, you can transmute those into expulsums. This is where the scrapper comes in handy. Blacksmithing. So blacksmithing has a few perks with it. For one, they can craft epic BOP armor, which has an item level of up to 385, and they can also create several unique follower gear. And then on top of that, they can create this item called the Khazgorian Hammer. This is a 1-hour cooldown and will instantly repair all of your gear. Also, while you have this item, any blacksmithing armor or weapon that you create has a chance to become indestructible. Now there's a few neat items that blacksmiths can create. They can create a monolite skeleton key. It allows opening of locks up to lockpicking 600, but then they can make a mono hardened hoof plate, which can be put on your mount and increases your mount speed on Kulturas and Zandalar by 20%, and the duration lasts for 2 hours. And the duration is quadrupled for blacksmiths, so it lasts 8 hours. Then the model hardened stirrups allows you to interact with things while on your mount in Kulturas and Zandalar for 2 hours, but it's also 8 hours for blacksmiths. Now those 3 items can be sold, so anyone is able to use them, but then there's few items that only blacksmiths can use, such as Platinum Whetstone. This is a follower gear that just increases your mission chance by 5%. Then there's Storm Silver Spurs. It's a follower equipment that decreases mission duration by 20%. Then a magnetic mining pick, which allows your followers to bring back ore in successful missions. And that's really it for blacksmiths. Then for enchanters. So first off, as far as enchants go, there are no more back enchants. So there's that. Tailors actually have the back enchants now. But there are enchanting only perks. They can create a disenchanting rod, which is a follower equipment that has a chance to bring back enchanting dust on successful missions. Then enchanters can enchant their own bracers with 1 of 3 buffs that affect your hearthstone in some way. Cooling Hearthing reduces its cooldown by 5 minutes. Safe Hearthing gives you an absorb shield while hearthing. Then Swift Hearthing, which increases the speed of your hearthstone cast. Then for weapon enchants that the enchanter can give, they have a bunch of enchants that have a chance to give you some of your secondary stats. They also have one that increases your elemental spell damage, another enchant that allows your spells to heal you as well as do damage. They're really all over the place, you know how enchanters work. And then there's 2 variations of ring enchants, like how there were in Legion. There's seal enchants, which give you 27 of your secondary stats, and then pact enchants, which give you 37 of your secondary stats. Then of course, glove enchants, like how they have in Legion, that increase gathering profession speeds. There's also a glove enchant that increases crafting speed if you care about that. Oh yeah, and enchanters can make wands, which they could make a few of back in vanilla, but yeah, crafted wands through enchanters are coming back. Now for engineering. Engineers can do things like create BOP helms with an item level of 345, and these helmets will also increase their engineering by 20 just for having them on. They can of course create exclusive follower gear, and then they can enchant their belts. Now talking about these buy on pickup helmets, they can make, it's interesting since helmets are one of your Azeroth gear pieces. So these helmets can have exclusive Azeroth traits that only engineers have access to. A few of the traits are a barrage of mini bombs. Spells have a chance to fire a bomb at your target, which breaks into 5 smaller bombs, and they each do a set amount of damage. Also a ricocheting inflatable pyrosaw that launches a rip, as it states, that bounces around to 4 enemies dealing fire damage, and it can also heal 4 injured allies, which is nice. Then there's also another one called an auto self-cauterizer. Taking damage has a chance to activate it, healing you for a set amount, and removes most bleed effects, and also snares enemies nearby. Engineers can also make guns and maces like normal. Engineers can also make various devices. Now these aren't toys, they're just, well, devices. A deployable attire rearranger, which alters the look of your gear for 2 minutes. The electroshock mount motivator increases your mount speed by 10% for 10 seconds, which can stack up to 5 times because this thing has like 50 charges to it, but the higher the stack, it has a chance to disorient your mount. And then there's an interdimensional companion repository. This allows hunters to have a mobile stable for 2 minutes, so I'm definitely going to be picking one of those up. Then a magical intrusion dampener, which is the BFA version of the neural silencer. It makes you immune to things like leap of faith and also misdirect. And then the XA1000, which deploys a boat that moves across water. And then all those can be sold and traded. Now engineers can of course make scopes, which are beneficial to hunters, but something I'm more excited about is that they can create frost and incendiary ammunition, which gives your weapon a frost or fire tip. That frost one is going to come in handy when killing Viscidus. Then the belt enchants that only engineers can do to themselves. There's one that can fear your target for 5 seconds, also another one that puts an absorb shield around you for 10 seconds, and then another one that can knock back your current target. Then there's a few bomb items, which have some interesting effects. There's a normal bomb that just does fire damage, an organic discombobulation grenade, which will summon 5 sheep, and if anyone comes into contact with those sheep, they actually get polymorphed. So that's a pretty fun one. Then there's a thermo-accelerated plague spreader, which creates an area of poison dealing damage. Then of course there is a mount, the Mecha Mogul Mach 2. Anyone can use this mount, not just engineers, although the materials for it are quite a lot obviously, and the recipe for the mount is dropped from the boss Mogul Razdunk from the Motherlode dungeon. And then finally the follower equipment that they can exclusively use, a makeshift Azerite detector, which has a chance to bring back Azerite from successful missions, which honestly, that alone may make me switch to engineering. I don't know, it seems too good. Then there's a Monolite Fish Finder, which brings back fish from successful missions. Then for herbalism. Now herbalism is of course a gathering profession, not a crafting profession, so there's not a lot to talk about here, mainly just what each of the herbs are called. We have a Riverbud, Sea Stalk, Star Moss, Akunda's Bite, Winter's Kiss, Siren's Pollen, and then a green quality herb and Anchorweed. Now just a bit of a tip here, at the very beginning of the expansion, pick up every single herb you see and sell it. Sell them all. The prices at the start of the expansion are very high for things like this, so it's a very good way to make money at the beginning, since both alchemists and inscriptionists will need these. And then for inscription. So inscriptionists have the personal advantage of being able to create a crimson ink well, which is a follower equipment that brings inks back from successful missions. Inscriptionists can also make war scrolls, which can be used in a party or a raid to increase the party's attack power, intellect, or stamina by 7%, depending on which you do. Now warriors, mages, and priests can give a better version of that buff, but this is in case you don't have those classes. And then they can of course make their new version of tomes and codexes, and then they can of course make Vantis runes. These do the same as they did back in Legion, increases your versatility by 463 on a certain raid boss, and you can only use them once per week, and it only works with that one raid boss you decided to use it on. And of course travels through each of the difficulties, just like how they worked back in Legion. Now inscriptionists can make a new thing called contracts. There's a contract for every reputation faction, and these are items that you can use and will gain reputation with that faction for every time you complete a world quest. But you have to be friendly with that faction first before you can use it. Now I believe these can be traded and sold, so I see this being a very good moneymaker for inscriptionists. And then of course inscriptionists can make Dark Moon cards. There's a Dark Moon deck, Blockades, which seems to be more tank oriented. This deck will repeatedly shuffle in combat and has a chance to heal a small amount of health and gain additional stamina. The amount is completely random. Then Dark Moon deck Tides for healers repeatedly shuffles in combat and has a chance to restore some mana back. The mana restored is completely random. Then Dark Moon deck Squalls shuffles in combat as well and has a chance to put a dot on the target, and the duration of the dot is completely random. And then Dark Moon deck Fathoms, which also shuffles and has a chance to just do a straight damage to the target, and the damage is random. And then of course inscriptionists can make some offhand pieces like they have before. Now as far as new glyphs are being added, there's only 3 currently, and they're all druid glyphs. So there's a glyph of the dolphin, which turns your aquatic form into a dolphin, a glyph of the humble flyer, which allows you to turn into your level 60 flight form, which you actually lose when you learn the epic flying, and then a glyph of the tide skipper, which turns your aquatic form into a tide skipper dolphin. Now for jewel crafting. So first off, in BFA, there are no neck pieces to craft, but jewel crafters will be able to craft staffs. They can also create a kaleidoscopic lens, which is a follower gear that has a chance to reward gems on successful missions. Jewel crafters may no longer be able to craft necks, but they can still craft rings. There's 8 different rings, all with a single secondary stat and a socket. 4 of them are item level 225, and then the other 4 are 300. Jewel crafters will of course still be able to make gems to put in your gear. And as far as these stats goes, there are 4 that give 7 of your secondary stat, then 4 that give 9 of your secondary stat, and then 3 that give 9 of your primary stat, which you can only have 1 of at a time, just like in Legion. But on top of those gems, there's also a gem that increases your experience gained by 5%, and another gem that increases your movement speed by 3%, so that's pretty interesting. Then for leatherworking. Leatherworkers can now create bows and fist weapons, along with armor. They can create BOP leather and mail armor up to item level 385. They can also make a follower equipment that increases success chance by 10%, and another follower equipment that gives you a chance to receive skins or hide from successful missions. And on top of leather and mail armor, bows and fist weapons, and follower gear, there's a few extra items that they can make. There's drums of Maelstrom, for example. These are the drums of this expansion that grant your party or raid 25% haste for 40 seconds. Then a coarse leather barding, which prevents you from getting dazed while mounted for 2 hours, but is actually 8 hours for leatherworkers. A shimmer scale diving helmet, which allows underwater breathing for 15 minutes, and a shimmer scale diving suit, which increases swim speed by 100% for 15 minutes. And those can be sold and traded, so keep that in mind, leatherworkers. And then for mining. Now mining is another gathering profession, so there isn't much to say about it, just the different ores are monolite ore, storm silver ore, and a green quality ore called platinum ore. Now just like how I mentioned with herbalism, here's a quick tip. Mine every single node you see at the beginning of the expansion and immediately sell it. Not only will these things be super expensive at the start, but they'll also get sold very quickly since jewel crafters, blacksmiths, and engineers use different ores. And then there's skinning. So just like mining and herbalism, skinning is the last gathering profession, so not a whole lot different with it. The different materials are, for leather, there's coarse leather and tempest hide. For scales, there are shimmer scales and mist scales, and then for bones, there are bloodstained bones and calcified bones. Now those bones are used in pretty much all leatherworking recipes. Leather armor requires the coarse leather and tempest hide, and the mail armor requires the scales. So make sure you sell every single piece of skinning material that you get at the beginning of the expansion. Go out of your way to kill beasts if you have to, because these things will be marked very high on the auction house. And then finally, with tailoring. So first things first, as we all know, first aid was removed, so tailors now have the ability to create bandages. One is a tide spray linen bandage, which heals you for a moderate amount over a certain duration, and the other is a deep sea bandage, which heals you for much more over a duration. Besides bandages, tailors can also make item level 385 BOP cloth armor, and then tailors are the ones with cloak enchants now, but it's only exclusive to tailors. There's discreet spell thread. This reduces the threat you generate. Then a feathery spell thread, which allows you to fall further before taking damage, and then resilient spell thread, which prevents you from being dazed while on Kolteros and Zandalar. So the last one actually seems really good. They can also make a roughed hook tide spray linen. This is a follower piece that gives a chance to reward cloth on successful missions. And then for bags. So tailors can make deep sea bags, which are 30 slots, but even better than that, they can make embroidered deep sea bags, which are a new 32 slot bag, which is the biggest crafted bags as of yet. And they of course can be sold, so there's a big money maker there. Tailors can also create these new things called battle flags. They're flags that you can place or put on your character, and they give different buffs. So there's a phalanx defense battle flag, which decreases damage taken by all allies within 15 yards of it by 15%, and it lasts a minute. Then a rallying swiftness banner. This is a banner that stays on the back of your player and increases the party's movement speed within 10 yards of you by 15% for 15 seconds. And then a spirit of freedom battle flag. This will drop a battle flag and decrease the amount of time players are affected by crowd controlling effects within 15 yards of it, and that lasts for a minute. Then a couple extra items. They can make a tide spray deep sea net, which slows targets, and then a hooked deep sea net, which can root targets. So there you have it, a complete profession overview for Battle for Azeroth. Now personally, I'm Inscription and Herbalism. I don't know if I'll change exactly, mainly because I've been that since Wrath of the Lich King, but I'm curious if this might make you change. So if you guys enjoyed this video, you can leave a like on it, you can sub to the channel for more videos like this, and I'll see you guys in the next video.